Okay, to kick off episode 143, I'd like to introduce Sharona again for her presentation. Thanks for joining us, Sharona. The floor is yours.
Thank you for hosting me. Okay, and do you see that my share screen? Can you affirm that you can see my?
Yeah, we can see it. Not in presentation mode, but we can see it.
It's not in presentation mode?
No, I can see all of your slides on the right.
What about now?
Yeah.
Much better.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So we're going to a journey mostly in the north of Israel. We're going to go one spot in the center before that. And we're following 3 chapters that are like a movie. We can actually imagine, see the places, see the actors, see the action. So we're talking about chapters 6, 7, and 8 in the book of Judges. So whenever there's a quotation from the Bible, which I'm not mentioning the book, it will be from these chapters. And only if I go to another book, then you'll see where the quotation is from. And we're talking about the Judges cycle, the sin and Judges, which repeats several times in the book of Judges. The people of Israel fall into sin. Then Israel is oppressed every time by a different nation. Sometimes it's the Philistines, sometimes it's the Moabites, sometimes it's the Amalekites. They cry out to the Lord raises a judge, and Israel is saved. And then for 40 or 80 years, or the multiples of that, there's peace and quiet. In some Judges, it's 3 or 4 sentences, and some get, as you see here, 3 full chapters. So most of our story is going to be here in the eastern side of the major valley between Samaria and the Galilee. Now, and in the valley of Harod, this is the first headquarters of Gideon, and the valley of Ksulot, this is where the first battle takes place. But before we go up to the north, we have to visit the center. Okay, we're going, again, these are the 2 places that we're going to visit the most, the Ein Harod and the valley of Ksulot. But before, we have to begin at Shechem, because that is the area of where Gideon was born. This is where he spent his childhood. This is where his father's house is. This is what the Bible tells us. And they're oppressed under the Amalekites to the point that they can't cultivate, and they can't work with whatever they managed to get from their fields in the expected place. So he actually has to go and take the wheat into the wine press where it's unexpected, where the Amalekites are not looking for him. If he took his wheat to the regular threshing floor, it would be taken by the Amalekites. Now, in English, it is said that he was threshing. The Hebrew says, "V'Gideon chovet chitim bagat." It uses the word chovet, which means to beat or to strike. Now, notice this movie, which was, can you see the movie? Is it working? Was taken in Africa, as you can see, in the 21st century, of people beating their wheat. They don't have the donkey, they don't have the mule or whatever other animal to go around the threshing floor, so they're actually beating. So we can actually imagine Gideon doing this action. And where is it happening? Here, Nablus is the Arabic name for Shechem, English name as well for Shechem, and really close to it, there is a place called Iraq Burin. And Iraq Burin, here it is in an aerial photo. I did not visit it. It's in Palestinian Authority today. So I took these photos from a computerized air photo company. Notice this cliff. And this cliff is very, very dominant in the area. It has been very dominant for centuries or millennia. And the minute when Gideon begins to act, after he put the angel into a test and the fleece was wet and the threshing ground was dry, and later on vice versa, the fleece was dry and the threshing ground was wet. After that, he goes and builds an altar to God on the top of the rock. Okay, what rock? If you look around the area of Shechem, around the area of Nablus, this is the one place that could be the rock, that you say a rock and everybody understands what you are talking about. Okay, this is what it looks like from the side. It's a very dominant cliff. Okay, and once again, this is the cliff, this is the rock. And right next to it, there's a chirbe, a ruin called Ophel. And the Bible tells us that Gideon comes from a place called Ophrah. It fits together. So this is probably where the story began. Other photos for this presentation. Some of them were taken last year when I went specially with Yulia for this presentation, and others in 2015. 2015 was a strange year in Israel. There was only one election campaign, not four in 1 year. And during that one election day, me and my family went on this flying balloon journey right on this area. Poor kids of mine, we're talking 7 years ago, so they were 10 and 13 years of age. And instead of just enjoying the view, sitting in the basket, looking over the Jezreel Valley, Mount Tabor on one side, Gilboa on the other side, their crazy mother tells them, here, this is where Gideon went, and here, this is where King Shaul went. So I thought these photos would fit this presentation as well. So early in the morning, Yerubal, that is Gideon. His known name among his friends was Yerubal. And they camped at the spring of Harod near the hill of Moreh, Givat HaMoreh in Hebrew, hill of Moreh. This is it. Givat HaMoreh is here, and we're more or less looking from the area of Mayan Harod. Now, this name Yerubal was found just a year ago, July 21, on an inscription on a piece of pottery, an ostraca, as it's known in archaeological terms. And what it says here is Yerubal. And it was found in the south part of Israel. Nothing to do with this biblical story, but the timing is correct. It's about 12th century BC. It is the time of the judges. So we have a name from the Bible and an inscription from the same time bearing the same name. Obviously, it is not the same Yerubal, but still it is very, very exciting. And we'll be going back to this inscription later on in the story. So obviously, Gideon's call for coming into his army and getting rid of the Midianites was very popular. And he has thousands of people. And to the point that God fears a little that it will not look as a miracle enough. And he has to start screening them. He has to start minimizing the number. So he tells them, tell the people, whoever is afraid should go to Mount Gilad. Now, again, the translation to English is not very, very accurate, because what it says in the Hebrew Bible, miyareh v'yachad, whoever is afraid, yashuv v'yitzpor, which should go back and yitzpor, watch or observe from the mountains of Gilad. Let's see where the mountains of Gilad are. Okay, Mount Tabor, perfectly round, a mountain like 5-year-old would draw a mountain. HaMoreh Hill. Okay, this is where the battle will take place shortly. We are now stationed with Gideon here at the foot of Gilboa at Ein Harod, at the spring of Harod. And he tells them whoever is afraid can go and observe beyond the Jordan River. to the mountains of Gilad, to Transjordan of today. You can go as far as there, feel protected beyond the Jordan River, and look at the battlefield from afar. And 2/3 of his army actually leave. But God tells him there are still too many. You have a 5-digit number. I want it to go down to a 3-digit number. Okay? Take them down to the water, and I will tell you what to do, which soldiers to take and which soldiers to release. So we're going down to the water, and as it is in Israel, we are trying to give new places, either return their old biblical name. So Ma'ayan Harod, the spring of Harod, has the same name from 3,000 years ago till today. And right next to it, the Moshav is called Gideon, named after Gideon. So today it's a national park managed by the National Park Authority. It's very beautiful, as you can see, and we're going closer and closer to the spring itself. The spring is in this cave right here. So Gideon took the men down to the water, and the Lord told him, separate those who lap the water with their tongues as a dog laps from those who kneel down and drink. Now, once again, the English translation tries to clarify something. The Hebrew sentence is very unclear. It is not sure, because as the sentence is sort of cut in the middle, something with the editing went wrong, and there's a half a sentence missing there. And it says, those who lap, and then it doesn't say what would happen to them, and those who drink like a dog, and it doesn't say. It's not clear who will be the chosen ones and who will be left outside the army. So this is kneeling. Okay, Julia took several photos of me to get us this action. And this is like a dog. Which do you think is a better soldier? Let's let people open their mics and hear your opinions. Who should be taken to the army? On the left or on the right? What do you think?
The left.
Left.
You say the left because?
Because you're an idol worshiper if you're lying down like that.
Exactly. So the logic is that these people who can still jump up easily, maybe hold their weapons with their other hand while one hand is drinking. They can turn their heads around to see if an enemy is coming. This is, we think, a better soldier. And this one, like a dog, like an animal, can't hold himself, can't think. Okay? You would think it is the worst soldier. But those were the 300 that were chosen. So perhaps God wanted it even more to look like a miracle. Not only am I taking only 300 people, but I'm taking those who don't think like soldiers. Maybe. Or perhaps it is saying they can jump up. Maybe those who let themselves go all the way down are the ones in better shape. Again, the sentences in the original Hebrew sentences are cut in such a way that you can understand it one way and the opposite way at the same time. So we're down to 300 warriors. Mind you, they don't have what to fight with. They don't have weapons, because all that time of oppression by the Midianites, they didn't have any metal industry. All their plows were taken away from them. So they have a lot of motivation. They have a great leader. They don't have a sword. So 300 maybe lame soldiers without swords. So we really need a miracle at this time. So we took over but those 300 take the provision and the trumpets of all those who left. And this is very important. because not everybody had a trumpet. If there were 10,000, if there were 30,000. But when you go down to 300, each one can have a trumpet. If they take over all the trumpets of those who are left, and we'll get to that again very shortly. Okay, now I'm quoting from another book, from the book of Samuel. Okay, at the very, very end of first book of Samuel, King Shaul dies. And the second book of Samuel begins with David lamenting for Shaul and for Jonathan as well. And he curses Mount Gilboa. May you have neither dew nor rain. May no showers fall on your terraced fields. Al tal ve'al matar alechem usde trumot. If you look at Gilboa today, you see that its northern face is barren. And if you measure the amount of rain, you see that it's not the Judean desert, okay? But there's a lot less rain here than here or in the western slope. We have here a mini phenomena of desert in the shadow of the rain because of the sheer slope going towards the east and the wind coming from the west with the humidity, with the clouds. We have here in a small scale, a desert in the shadow of the rain. So where does the water come from? The Gilboa mountain was created geologically by a normal fault. As you can see, one section went down, one section went up, with the fault itself being diagonal like this. Over here, there's a layer bearing water. The green layer is an aquiclude, a layer that doesn't let water seep further down. And this layer, as long as it was connected with this section, the water would stay underground. The minute the fault exposes this layer, many, many, many springs appear over here. If you look at the valley beneath the Gilboa today, you see that it's full of fish pools. That's the easiest agriculture, the easiest branch, economical branch you can have there, because there's an abundance of water. There's no rain. The water comes here from rain that falls in Samaria, further away, kilometers away. But there's an abundance of water, and it's a great opportunity to use it for fish pools. If you look just beneath Gilboa, there's a whole line of springs, one of them being the Harod spring, okay? So this is Ein Harod over here, over here, Ein Harod, one of many springs all along. So this was a little bit of geology in the middle of the Bible. So the camp of the Midianites is north of Givat Moreh, the hill of Moreh. The 300 men with Gideon climb on top of Givat Moreh. They cross the Harod Valley. They climb Givat Moreh. Julia and I took these photos in January, so we enjoyed the bloom. And now we're at the very, very top of Givat Moreh. We're standing on Givat Moreh, and we're looking at the Ksulot Valley, which is between us and Mount Tabor. The camp of Midian lay below. We can imagine the camp of Midian where the industrial zone is today. And the Lord says to Gideon, go down against the camp, because I'm going to give it into your hands. Okay? You're in a better topographical point where we were standing taking this photo. We're really standing where Gideon was looking down into the valley. But he's still fearing. He has 300 untrained, unarmed men. He believes in God. The fleece was dry, the fleece was wet, but still, believing in miracles is not enough. He needs something more to cling to. So God tells him, go down. And again, we can see the topography of it. He's standing on the top of the mountain. He needs to go down to the Midianite camp with your servant Torah and listen to what they're saying. So they go down to the camp. Camels could not be counted because they're like sand on the seashore. Their army is so great and so big. And when he gets there, what he hears is one soldier telling the other about his dream. I had a dream, he was saying. A round loaf of barley bread came tumbling into the Midianite camp. It struck the tent with such force that the tent overturned and collapsed. Now, you don't have to be Joseph to understand this dream. A loaf of bread is the farmers, and a tent is nomads. The Israelites are the farmers. The Midianites are the nomads. It is very, very easy to comprehend this dream. And the friend responded, it could be nothing other than the sword of Gideon. How do they know that Gideon has a sword? Maybe there's one sword in the whole camp of the Israelites. God has given the Midianites and the whole camp into the hand of Gideon. And again, this photo was taken from the flying balloon. It was a great day. Now, as Julia and I were standing there in this January day, taking photos, it's at the edge of a neighborhood, and 10 meters away, a woman comes out from the very last house. She sees us taking the pictures, and she said, "You should have come here 2 days ago." 2 days ago, it was so chilly and so clear that we could see the Hermon. And I asked her, please, could you send me that photo? And as you can see, her name, Sarah Meir, she actually did. So this was taken from the exact same point of the previous photos. And that reminded me of another biblical phrase, beautiful, Tavor and Hermon, sing for joy at your name. Now, Tavor is 500 meters over sea level. Hermon is 4 times higher. It's 2,000 meters over sea level. How can you compare them? How can you put them in one sentence? How can you say that they're like each other? Only if you're standing here as Givat HaMoreh. And Tavor is 2-3 kilometers away. And Hermon is 100 and some kilometers away. And only in the very, very clear, chilly day, when there's snow on top of Hermon, you can see through that distance. And then the very far mountain, which is 4 times higher, looks the same height as the very close mountain. So I can really imagine whoever wrote this sentence in Psalms stood exactly next to the house of Sarah Meir somewhere 3,000 years ago on a very clear, chilly day. Okay, we're zooming up. You can see this is the slope of the Tavor, and this is the Hermon, 100 kilometers away. Okay, so now Gideon is convinced. He heard the dream. He goes up back to Givat HaMoreh, and he tells his people, we can do it. Okay, let's divide into 3 companies and come to the Midianite camp that's below us from 3 different directions. Now, one hand will hold a trumpet, and the other hand will hold an empty jar, and and inside it, a torch. You notice 2 hands are occupied. There's no third hand for a sword. Okay, so their weapons are trumpets and empty jars and torches. Okay, and then he says, look at me and do likewise. In Hebrew, mim'eni tiru v'chen ta'asu. The photo that we're seeing now is in training base number 1, next to Mitzpe Ramon in the Negev. And training base number 1 is where officers' course takes place. And every officer in the Israeli army had to go through at least 6 months of this place. And whenever they go in and out the main gate, this is what you see. Mimeni tiru v'ken ta'asu. Okay? The Israeli commanding layer is always setting the example. It's saying, come after me, do what I am doing, and it's not saying go and attack while I'm sitting behind in the headquarters. For good and for bad. That explains a lot of Israelis' victories and successes in the military campaigns. It also explains why we have so many high-ranked injuries and casualties, because they're always in the front line. They're always first to run. But you see the connection between the biblical text and contemporary Israel today. We came back to our land. We're not visitors from Europe, and we're connected in every inch of the way. So what does he tell them to do? Okay. We want to blow our trumpets. It was understood in ancient times that only a commander of a unit, whether it's a squad or a platoon or a company, only the commander has a trumpet. That's why there were 300 trumpets for 10,000 people. Now, 300 people are holding 300 trumpets. When the Midianites hear that, they're not going to know that it's 300 people. They're going to think it's 3,000. It's 10,000. Because in their imagination, in what they know as custom, every trumpet holder has a unit behind it. So that's one point. Okay. Then you're going to blow the trumpets, and you're going to break the jars and hold the torches. So you have two different sound effects, the trumpets and the breaking jars, and immediately from darkness, 300 torches that lit all around the camp. So the psychological effect is humongous, okay? They come at the beginning of the middle watch. Once again, this is knowing very well how an army works. The night watch is divided into three. Those who do the first watch have it easiest. They just go to sleep a little later. Those who go to the last watch have it also not so bad. They went to sleep early, they got a full night's sleep, and then they woke up a little earlier. The middle watch is the worst. You slept a little, then you have to wake up and guard, and then you supposedly go to sleep again. When you attack a camp at the beginning of the middle watch, they're still half dreaming. They just woke up. They just reached their post. The first watch has already gone back to sleep, and they're still rubbing their eyes. They're still not sure where exactly they are. And then the three companies blew their trumpets and smashed their jars, and grasping the torches in their left hand and holding in their right hand the trumpets, they were to blow, and they shouted, "The sword of the Lord and for Gideon." One sword, 300 people, one sword, okay? And all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled. How are they going to, excuse me for saying, get killed? From each other's swords. The Midianites in the darkness, with the torches from every direction, with the trumpets from every direction, they don't know where is the enemy. They start killing each other. And then finally, they start escaping. They start escaping towards the east, towards the Jordan. Now, you can't just cross the Jordan in any given point. You have to go to the areas where the water is shallow, where the stream is slow, where there's probably a bridge. So they're running towards these specific places. They go to a place called Bet Hashita. Here it is. Still exists today, which we can recognize. But they also go to places which we're not exactly sure, like Zerara and Tabat, the places that are written in blue. We're not exactly sure where they are today. And as they are fleeing the Midianite army, Gideon and his 300 people are also chasing them, are pursuing them. Gideon realizes that he doesn't have enough people for the pursuit. For circling a camp, 300 is enough. But he can't go to each and every bridge, each and every river crossing. So he calls the people of Ephraim, while the Midianites are escaping from this area, down south and east, people of Ephraim go and block them. Okay? And he's calling the people of the larger tribes of the north, Asher and Naphtali, help us in this pursuit. The people of Zvulun and Issachar, where the battle actually took place, they're too weak. They're too small. They're not enough people. So finally, after having the miracle that we had with a few people, we're joining in all the people who waited at the Gilad, all the people who did not drink correctly. They all join and help Gideon and his army. The 300 men are exhausted, still keeping the pursuit, came to the Jordan and crossed it. Now, this is an aerial photo of the area today. The Jordan River is running here, and it is today the border between Israel and Jordan. The official border crossing is right over here. Let's get closer. Okay, you saw the fish pools from before. This is the Jordan River. You know the gospel song about the river is deep and the river is wide? Somebody was looking at the Mississippi while they were writing the okay, it might be deep, but definitely not wide and never was, but okay. And here, this is the bridge. This is today's modern crossing from Israel to Jordan. It is located where it is engineering-wise the most logical point to build a bridge, where the banks are the closest and most solid. So this is probably the same place where the Midianites ran away and Gideon and his army chased them across. So this is this border crossing over here. They keep south, they keep east. At a certain point, both armies reach Pnuel, and then the Midianite army goes to Kalkor in one direction. And at this point, again, Gideon shows what a brilliant commander he is. And he decides not to chase at the same route, but to come from another direction and surprise from the east, from a direction not expected, from the route of the nomads. And he is chasing specifically two commanders, Zevach and Salmuna, two kings of the Midianites. And those two he will catch at Kalkor. And at that point, he needs to send a message. So he catches a young man. We don't even know the name of that man. He's anonymous. He's a boy. And he writes down the names of 77 officials of the city of Sukkot. Now, this shows us about the literacy among the tribes of Israel in the 12th century BC. At the same time that in Egypt, they were using hieroglyphs and only a handful of people could read and write, here in Canaan, they made up, in the first place in the universe, the system of between 20 and 30 symbols that every boy, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, a first grader could memorize these 30 symbols, these 20-some symbols, and write the names. So even anonymous people, not kings, not commanders, not priests, could write down the names, which brings us back again to this shard with the writing. How amazing it is that the one shard that was found with the name of a judge is the one judge that in his story we have the action of writing. This is so exciting. Okay, now remember this star. We're going to go back to it. We saw it from before. Sorry, in the very, very beginning, one of the first slides, Gideon says, "I am the youngest of my father's family. And I forgot to mention it before. If we go back, we'll see that there's another star in one of the very first slides when he says, I am the youngest of my family. So he chases Zevach and Talmuna, those two commanders, and he asked them, okay, what kind of men did you kill at Tavo? When? In a battle that the Bible doesn't tell us about. They were oppressed for years, maybe tens of years. There were previous battles before this battle that the Bible does tell us about. Probably those battles were not victorious. Probably the people of Israel, the people of the northern tribes, suffered losses there. So we're sort of in chapter 3 of a book without reading chapter 1 and chapter 2. So here they're trying to fill up the gap. Okay, there was a battle in Tavo. These two commanders killed people, and men like you, each one with the bearing of a prince. We killed people, they say to Gideon, that look like you. And Gideon replies, those are my brothers. Now, when we talk about soldiers all over the world, okay, every soldier to a soldier is a brother. Okay, the song Brothers in Arms. But in this case, to make it specific, that he's not just talking about his brothers, so-called from the platoon, just brothers in arms, he says, the sons of my own mother. These are my older brothers. And this puts it in a personal story. Till now, we thought he was saving Israel. Now we know that he also had a little bit of vendetta, a little bit of revenge here. Okay? If you had spared my own brothers, I would have given you respect of kings. But since you killed my own blood, I would kill you. And we're getting to the end of the story. And thus Midian was subdued before the Israelites and did not rise again his head. During Gideon's lifetime, the land had peace for 40 years. And this is the biblical formula of they lived happily ever after. Okay, once upon a time, they lived happily after. At the Judges cycle that we began, at an end of the cycle, there was peace in the land for 40 years. Okay. The commanding qualities of Gideon, the way he takes advantage, psychological warfare, topography, knows when to recruit more people, knows to go around, all of that does not go undetected. And for many, many generations later, he is mentioned in the top line together with King David, together with Samuel. So this is a quote, for instance, from the New Testament, from the letter to the Hebrews, and it talks about how he escaped the edge of the sword, who takes the weakness and turns it into strength, becomes powerful in battle, and routed foreign armies. And especially Christians around the world take it, the advantage that a minority takes over the majority, how a few people who are weak become strong. Okay, look again at the battlefield. This is the spring of Harod. Then he climbed at Givat HaMoreh. The camp of the Midianites was over here. And then they fled over here. All of this geography we know already. And now we're going to add another place, Endor. And why are we adding this place? Because about 150 years later, after the victory of Gideon, another battle takes place in the same geographical zone, the last battle of Shaul, which we mentioned again. Shaul and his army were against the Philistines in this case. They came more from the west, more from this side. And during the battle itself, they had to go back and fight on Mount Gilboa. So it's a very similar area. But the night before, Shaul doesn't do what Gideon did. He doesn't send espionage to the Philistine camp. He doesn't listen to the people at night, what their dreams are, what their fears are. He does something on his own. He goes solo to Endor because he wants to speak with Samuel, and he gets a witch to raise up from the dead the ghost of Samuel, who tells him that he's going to lose the battle tomorrow. Many years later, in the 1930s, Major General Ord Charles Wingate, British officer, comes to Israel under the British mandate. In the 1930s, there's the Arab revolt of the Arabs against the British government here, the Arabs of Palestine, and Ord Wingate is called to deal with it, with this revolt. And he begins a Jewish force which is called the Night Squads. And these people of the Night Squads would later on become the first officers of the IDF in 1948, 12 years later. While he was training them, he goes up to the top of Mount Gilboa. And after they hiked all the way up, they're seated in the shade. He gives them some time off. They take their hats off, their helmets, they sit, they drink, they talk. And he takes out of his pocket his Bible. He was a Protestant Christian, and he always had his Bible with him. And he starts reading the Bible, and then he gets up angrily and he starts going right and left, and he starts speaking to himself, and he's very angry at somebody. And they don't know what's happening. And they ask him, who are you angry with? And he says, I'm angry with King Shaul. He had the same topography, he had the same area that Gideon had, and he didn't take advantage of it well enough. He went to Endor instead of espionage. He could have won if he had split his army, if he had walked at night, if he had done this and that and the other, he could have won. And he was really angry at King Shaul for doing it. And Ord Wingate takes his way of thinking of a commander, his science of warfare, he takes from Gideon and not from Shaul. So this Christian who admires Gideon trains the Jews of 1936, who later on become the commanders of the IDF in 1948. It's not a fairy tale of 3,000 years ago. It affects the security of Israel all the way till today. If you look at, he's so admirable that during the British Mandate, there was a group called Gideonim, who were engaged in espionage and in underground radio transmissions. Again, they use the same name. Today, we have both in the army and in the police units that are called Gideon. These are modern units of the Israeli army and the Israeli police of today. And if you read the invitation to this lecture, to this tour today, and you probably know that almost every hotel around the United States and other countries in the world has Gideon's Bible, which is something. There were 3 Christians who wanted to spread Christianity around the world. And how can we, 3 of us, do something so big? Okay, we'll learn from Gideon. 3 is okay. We can win. And that's why when they decided that their method is Bible in hotel rooms, they decided to take the name Gideon, because a few can do it. And that's all, folks. We finished. You're all welcome to open your microphones, and if you have questions, remarks, corrections, you're most
Thank you
welcome
so
to
much, Sharona. If you could stop share. Oh, if you want to take a look at, okay, you stop sharing your screen. I see there are some questions in the chat. There's actually just one, and then we're welcoming everyone to unmute and ask questions. Harry wants to know, why do hotels have Gideon's Bible and not David's, Samuel's, or other?
Because there were the three people who decided to go on this operation said, we are so few. We three are like the 300 men of Gideon. That if you write in Google Gideon's Bible, you'll see the whole story. How they called for a meeting and only 3 people appeared, and they said that's not going to discourage us. We're going to do it anyway.
That makes sense. Anyone else is welcome to unmute and ask Sharona any questions. Jacob saying you might mention Operation Gideon's Sword.
Please let us know, Jacob, because
feel free to unmute Jacob.
Feel free to fill in the gap.
Yeah, that was the operation launched by the Israeli government to hunt down the terrorists that killed the Israeli athletes in '72.
Right. I didn't realize that was the name of the operation.
It is an international inspirational message that a few people can do big things. And I think that probably resonates in many dimensions through time. Thank you for illuminating it through the Bible. You said it was around 1200 BC. That was before the time of David and Solomon, right?
Yes. The judges are before the kings.
Right.
Maybe 11. It's very difficult. Except for this shard, we don't have any archaeological site or finding that we can closely connect to any of the stories of the judges. We don't have Devorah's tree or any of that. So we don't know exactly the years. If we say that crossing the Jordan was more or less 1200, and David was more or less rounded up 1000 BC, so we have 200 years in the middle of judges. So the big judges had 40 years of quiet. The little judges had less years of quiet. We come together to about 200 years. Picked up the weapons from the fleeing armies. Yes. When the Midianites started killing each other, so yes, the Israelites picked up their swords, and finally they had swords. What else? I don't see any other questions.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. Does anyone else have anything else to ask?
Certainly an interesting history lesson. I just wonder where we could apply it to contemporary leadership, where a small group, I'm trying to think of where it might fit as a direct message. Can anybody think of anything?
Well, I look environmentally. Look at Greta. She was one teenager.
Yeah.
Okay, and she has a anti-global warming movement that she began.
Yeah. Very good.
And of course, the saying, "Kamoni tiru v'ken ta'asu," look at me and follow my acts. So that's leadership in a nutshell.
I took a screenshot of that. That's going to be my backdrop on my computer.
Malala too.
Malala, right?
Good shot. One person.
It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Fascinating and beautifully done.
Thank you. I really enjoyed taking the photos, both in 2015 on the flying balloon, and then on the day that I took with Julia to go and take the photos. It was a great day.
Well, there is a question, 2 questions. Harry's asking, any archaeological sites find weapons?
Yes, but not that you can connect to the Midianites or to the... You find many weapons in many sites, but I don't know of a site in the Ksulot Valley of this specific battle. The three people, what did they do? The three people, you're talking about the Gideon Bible? They decided.
Yes,
they
I think she's saying yes.
To print Bibles and put them in hotels. That's what they decided to do. That was their way to spread Christianity.
Are there any other branded?
Esther, you're muted, so we can't hear you. She's trying to ask about her question, Steve. Sorry, but she's muted.
Go ahead.
I know she has trouble finding unmute, so it might take a
Just
second.
hit the
Hello?
space
There
bar.
we go.
Yeah, but I mean, the three people, how are they connected to Gideon? I don't remember.
The three people who decided to spread Christianity by making sure that every hotel room had.
No, not that. But why was that even? What's the connection with Gideon?
They said the same way that Gideon won with very few people. We are even fewer, but we're going to win. That's the idea, that the few can do mighty things.
Also, isn't the 300 connected to the 3?
Yeah, symbolically. Then the great noise can upset. That's true. Blinding light in the darkness.
Beautiful,
Absolutely.
Gail.
Yes. Okay, folks.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Sharona. I know we've had you a few times, and it's always wonderful, and I really appreciate you coming again. And we'll have to
I
tell
hope Julia
Julia.
enjoyed her movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just said, I hope she's seeing Top Gun, I think. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's also dealing with weapons, I suppose,
Yep.
on theme. But hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much,
Great.
Sharona.
Yeah, thank you, Sharona, for adding a whole new dimension to some of our thinking about how small can influence big. That's a universal message, and this is a great illustration with deep history behind it. That's great. Thank you very much for your
Thank you
presentation.
very much.
We hope to see you again. Thank you for coming
Let's
back.
see you again. And from Israel, it's good night.
Yeah, all right.
Laila Tov.
Laila
Sharona.
Tov.
Laila Tov. We will now officially enter into schmooze mode, and I will stop the recording, and you're all welcome to continue on any topic whatsoever.
It was requested that for anyone new to schmooze mode, that they wanted sort of an introduction. This is where we just discuss what's happening in your lives, what's going on, what if we, want to bring up something that's happening in the world that's not too political in nature. If you do have questions about a